There we go. And we're going to get started. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the Dating Refresh. I am so excited to have you. Hello, Claudia from El Paso. I just moved from Texas. So I've got a little piece of Texas in my heart still. I'm going to close the chat for just right now. So if you want to say hello, if you have any questions, please continue writing them in the chat box, and I'll take intermittent breaks as I'm teaching this. I just don't want to have the chat open while I'm talking, because it's just super distracting and my mind will be over the place, and I just want to be able to get what I want out. So it's just a little bit more pleasant for the viewer, either whether you're here live or listening to the recording. So again, my name is Veronica Grant. I'm going to share a little bit about why I wanted to do this specific workshop in just a second. But before we get there, I just want to just say thank you for being here. There is so much noise on the internet, especially in the self-help industry, and which I have a lot of opinions about, but I won't go there right now. But I'm just so grateful that you found your way here, and that something about my work or something about me resonated with you to be here, because I'm not doing this work just to hear me talk or to listen to myself on podcast or to watch myself in the video. I'm really here because I just love supporting women, and it's really my soul's work, and it really is my life work. So I'm just so appreciative, and it's really an honor and a privilege to be here, to be guiding you, and to be right alongside with you as we figure out this messy thing that we call life, right? So just a couple of announcements if you're just now coming on. So the dating, oh my God, I can't talk. The Date Yourself Challenge is coming up really soon. You'll be able to sign up for it towards the end of this month. It's my signature challenge. Hundreds of women do it every time, and we have at this point thousands of alum, which I'm super excited about. If you don't listen to the Love Life Connection, then you can search for it on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play. And all this month, I'm sharing an epic 6-part series of how I found love and met Stevie, and it goes all the way back to where I was 11 years old. It's a really good story, I think, and I hope that it resonates with many of you all, and I think it will. All right, someone wasn't unmuted, but I think you are now, so awesome. So if your camera's on, or if you're not unmuted, I think you can mute yourself, but I'll try to catch that as well as it happens. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. So if you have any questions, again, just write them in the chat box. If you're listening to the recording, then there'll be an opportunity at the end, actually, of the call that everyone could take part of, whether you're here live or listening to the recording, to actually ask me questions personally and get some one-on-one coaching with me. So there'll be opportunities for that. So just make sure you jot down your questions if you're listening to the recording, so that you know what you want to talk about in your coaching call with me. And I'll tell you about that towards the end of our session tonight. And there's something weird on the screen, and I'm not even going to worry about that because I don't have the bandwidth. I'm just going to keep going. So anyways, also last thing is, if you're scrolling on Instagram or Facebook or just not fully with me, then I'm going to ask you to be with me fully, because a lot of what we do in the self-help world is read books or listen to podcasts, and it's very passive, right? We're just like absorbing all this information. But the truth is that you already have everything that you need inside of you. We all do. And it really is just a matter of just implementing and kind of doing the work. And nothing I'm teaching tonight is particularly earth-shattering. Nothing. I mean, there might be some new things, but I don't think it's going to be anything that you haven't heard before. I mean, maybe some of it is, but really my focus is for you to actually implement, and actually not just start listening to things like, oh, that sounds nice, but actually start doing things so you can actually see the results. Of course, you might get stuck or have questions or be confused, and that's why I am here to support you through that. So be here with me. You've already made the time to be here, so be fully, fully present. All right, cool. So let me just pull up my notes, because I just want to make sure that I don't skip over anything that I want to talk about. And we will get started. So for me, the reason why I wanted to do this particular workshop around creating habits and rituals and how that affects your mindset and the overthinking and like the craziness that you can feel like inside, like that you can feel and experience inside your mind, is because this has been a story throughout my life, really. I was very, very anal about schoolwork and always being perfect and doing this and doing that. And I can remember when I was, in middle school or high school, like running out of my mom's office and stomping into the living room. My parents were watching TV and like yelling at them to turn down the TV because I was trying to study. And it's like total role reversal, right? And my 11th grade teacher actually called my parents in for a meeting because he was nervous, or he was just nervous for me because I was so emotionally volatile to the grades that I was getting or what was happening or not happening in my life. And he basically kind of thought I needed to take a chill pill. And of course, as I got older, this bled into other areas of my life, like relationships and dating, work, friendships, health, my body image, all of these things. And so for years, my emotion du jour was basically based on, especially when I was dating, was basically based on what was or wasn't happening in my relationship life. If he texted me back, if he seemed interested, if he seemed like he wanted to, go on another date, or we had plans for another date, then I was on top of the world. The world was my oyster. I could do anything, like, woo, what, right? That was really where I was. But if he canceled, or he didn't text me back, or he ghosted, or didn't seem interested, or just didn't want to take it to the next level or get more serious or whatever it was, then I was at my lowest low, like to the point where I just felt like I couldn't function and couldn't do the work that I needed to do. So basically, I just felt for most of my life that I had no control over my emotions. And it led to a lot of rage and anxiety and some depression and just feeling completely out of control. And then in turn, I wanted to control what I could. So I would try to control every single thing about a potential date or a potential relationship. I tried to control every single thing about my body and what I looked like and what I ate and how many calories I burned every day. And I basically just kind of became like a control freak because I felt like, well, I can't control my emotions. So I'd probably try to find something that I can control. So if you can relate to that, I would love to hear about it in the comments. Just say like, me too, like, oh man, I'm with you. Or if it's something similar, not quite, like I would still love to hear about that in the comments as well. So what happened for me is I was going through this, and I was, at this point I was in my, probably my mid-20s or so. And I had worked through a lot of my body image stuff. And I'm not going to talk about body image too much tonight. I had a podcast about it. You can listen to that. And that's not really the point of this particular workshop. But why it's important is because when I got through a lot of my body image insecurities and started developing positive body image and had a really healthy relationship with food and exercise for really the first time in my life, I really wanted to help other women be able to do that too. I'd had like the entrepreneurship rumblings in my mind, and I thought this would be a perfect opportunity. So I went to a health coach training program. It was an online program, so I did it on my own in my house. And I was also at the same time had just finished up a yoga teacher training. So and part of my yoga teacher training program was that I had to, every morning I had to meditate, do breath work, and do some asana, which is basically like the actual poses, like warrior one, warrior two, those types of things. So I had to do that for like, 20 to 30 minutes every morning. So nothing crazy, but I had to do that every morning, make a habit of it, and then journal about it. And that was part of my training program. And so that was one thing that stuck with me after my yoga teacher training program ended. And by the time I enrolled in my health coach training program, I was really, really busy. So at the time I was living in Washington, D.C. I was working 40 hours a week. So I had a regular job that also required sometimes nights and weekends work. I was teaching at that point, probably almost 10 classes a week. So I was pretty much working from 9 a.m. And then I left my regular job around 4:30 or so, maybe 5, and then had yoga classes from about 6 until 9. I taught 2 classes most evenings and sometimes more if I was subbing. I was also walking to work. So I had a 30-minute walk each way. So an hour commute round trip. I was also cooking about 80 to 90% of my food. So I wasn't getting takeout or anything like that. So I was still making the time to grocery shop and cook and prep all my food for the week. So basically I was really, really busy. Like it was just an insane, insane lifestyle. And it definitely was not sustainable in the long term, but for the moment, like that's just how it was. And I just enrolled in this health coach training program. Like when the hell was I ever going to do that? Right. So what I started doing is I started getting up really early so I could do my yoga teacher training stuff. So the meditation, the breath work, and the asana. I was living with roommates at the time. It was before, well, I guess Stevie and I were dating, but we didn't live together. So I went down into the kitchen, made my breakfast, made my green smoothie, got my lunch ready for the day, made my coffee, and then would take my smoothie and my breakfast and my coffee back upstairs. And I would do my training program for about 30 to 45 minutes while I ate breakfast, and then I would get ready. And that whole routine was probably about 60 to 90 minutes. It was pretty long, but I was also getting up really early. And when I think about this insane schedule and how busy I was and how I literally had hardly time for friends, I mean, I was lucky that I had time even just for Stevie. I was so busy and like so exhausted. I mean, I would just get up every morning and it would just be the same thing. It'd be like a marathon until 10 o'clock at night when I got home from my last yoga class, just, long enough home to turn off the light and just crash into bed. But what got me through that time in my life was my morning routine. And it totally happened by accident. I mean, people will talk about morning routines for forever, right? So this is not anything that I invented or made up. But it was something that I stumbled upon by accident because it was literally the only time that I had to work on my health coach training program stuff. And it was also part of a requirement for my teacher training. And it just happened to stick with me. And so that morning time became magical to me, and it is how I survived that time in my life. And it wasn't just about getting up early and just like having, watching TV or reading the news. It was like intentionally doing stuff that inspired me, so the health coach stuff, but also that was inward reflecting and allowed me just to reflect and to kind of meditate on things like what was going on, like how was I feeling, like what was going on for my body, what was going on for my mind. And having those types of elements in my morning routine energized me, it inspired me, it kept me grounded in a time that was a pretty stressful time and a busy time in my life. And most importantly, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more, is that it kept me in the right mindset. And I know that's why a lot of you all are here, because you feel like you're not in the right mindset with dating, and that maybe you feel very negative or jaded or bad or confused or bitter, or something along those lines. And for me, I found a routine really helped me to stay in a focused mindset. Now, my morning routine is drastically different than what it was back then. But my life has drastically changed. But my dedication to a morning routine has not changed. So in a little bit, I'm going to walk you through creating some sort of routine in your life. If you don't have any routine at all, I highly recommend starting with a morning routine. If you have a morning routine, then when I walk you through how to set up a routine, then maybe you want to just tinker a little bit with your morning routine. Maybe you want to add on an evening routine. And we'll talk about this more. You can also add on a pre-date ritual, like before you go on a date, like what would it be like if you did a ritual, or a pre-swiping ritual, like what would happen if you got into some mindset work and got into the quote unquote right mindset before you got on Tinder, right? Like how often do you just get on Tinder when you're waiting in line at the grocery store at Starbucks, right? Like what would be different if you did something that was intentional behind your actions before you did that thing that you always do. So we're going to get there in a second. But first, I want to talk about the mindset and how important it is. So on my podcast, if you listen to that, and also in my blog and my newsletters, I've been talking a lot about manifesting and law of attraction lately. And I really hesitated to talk about it. And I also was aware of manifesting and law of attraction long before I ever started applying it to my life. And I just thought it was just a bunch of hocus pocus, like hippy dippy crap. And I was just like, whatever, I'm not into it. I just want very practical, tangible things. So that's kind of how my brain thinks. That's kind of person that I am. But then when I started learning more about like the mindset and how your beliefs create your reality, and how it's like actually very, very tangible, and it's not so woo-woo or airy-fairy, was when I started taking manifesting and law of attraction a little bit more seriously, which made me take mindset a little bit more seriously. So think of it this way, and this is all really what whether you want to manifest love, manifest happiness, manifest more money, a better job, a new house, whatever it is a lot of times we think, okay, well, when I get into a relationship, then I'll feel happy and then I'll feel confident. Or when I have more money, then I can make friends because I can afford to go out. Or when I have a new house, then I'll feel, more relaxed, or whatever it is. So it's basically this when-then game. But the irony is that when you're just basically putting off your happiness, or your joy, like when you're putting that off and just saying, well, when I get in a relationship, I'll be happy. And I'll just go with that example because that's why a lot of you all are here. Then what happens is you don't really allow yourself to feel how you want to feel in the present time, and not feeling good can actually keep you from the actual thing that you want, because it might perpetuate bad habits, or not going out at all, or not dating at all, or attracting the wrong types of guys. And so what I like to think when I use an example is, what if you showed up on a date and you were feeling excited and you were feeling confident in yourself and you really felt like you had something to share and something to offer, and you were genuinely excited to meet the person that was across the table from you, and you didn't have attachment as to whether or not there was another date or whatever would or would or could potentially happen after the date. Like, what if you just had no attachment, no strings attached? You were just there to really enjoy yourself and genuinely get to know the other person. Like, how would you show up differently? Like, what would you physically do differently? What would you actually say differently? How would you carry yourself? What's the kind of energy that you'd have? Like, how do you think the other person would react? Do you think the other person would be like, oh, this person seems really confident and like really interesting. Like, she has a lot to share. Like, yeah, I'm totally into this, right? Like, that's probably the vibe that your potential or your date is gonna get, right? Whereas, what if you show up on your date and you're just feeling you're not feeling very confident? You're feeling, well, am I just wasting my time? Is this going to go like how it always goes? Or is anything really going to change? Is he really going to be different? Or is he going to be like all the rest of them? Again, what do you think you're going to do differently? Like, how do you think you'll carry yourself differently? Well, you're probably going to be more in a place where the date feels a little bit more like an interview, right? Than just a conversation of two people getting to know each other. You might unknowingly or knowingly kind of put him on the defensive and maybe think that he's guilty until proven innocent, right? Like, especially if you've been burned many times, or burned particularly bad by a past ex, you might have trouble with trust and not really trust him, right? All sorts of potential things could happen, but with him feeling like he's being judged or assumed guilty until proven innocent, like, how do you think he's going to behave? Like, he's probably going to go on the defensive. There's not really going to be space for a connection. And that all started from your mindset. So let me know in the comments if that makes sense. I know it can sometimes be a little bit confusing, or I don't know. I try to make it as tangible as possible, but if it still sounds, airy-fairy, I'd happy to explain more. So let me know in the comments if that makes sense to you. But this is really why, for me, my morning routine, and really a lot of my routines that I do, are so important to me. I have routines and rituals that I do before I hop on the phone with the client. I don't just run and jump on the phone with the client because it's going to be like very like, oh, right? So like, I take a few moments and I just simply imagine how my call is going to go, and I'm going to feel exactly the way I want to feel in my call, and I'm going to show up and do my best. And I literally visualize that for a minute or two, and then I light a candle, and I do the same thing before a workshop, and I've got a candle going right here. It's part of my jam, and it gets me into the right mindset so I can show up and feel calm and collected and comfortable and confident, and not that I'm like, oh, are they going to like what I have to say? Right? Like, if I had that kind of energy, would you be driving with what I'm sharing right now? Like, probably not so much. You'd probably be like, who is this woman and why am I here? Right? So I'm going to go over to the comments. I see a lot of chats coming in. I'm kind of at a good pause. So I'd love to hear what people are saying. So people are saying, I can totally relate. Sound like you're telling my story. Okay, Natty says, I can relate too. With therapy and a great family and friend support, I learned to control my emotions and see them for what they are. Absolute sense, 100%. Cool. Awesome. So you guys were all on the same page. Great. So, all right, let's get more into the rituals, routines, and habits, and all of those things. So if you don't have your worksheet in front of you, hopefully my screen share is still working, and so you can see the worksheet. If you're on the phone and you can't see the screen, or for any other reason you can't see the screen, then I sent a link to the worksheet in pretty much every single email that I sent. So just look for a dating refresh email. I would tell you the link, except that it's like one of those Google Drive links and it's like forever long. So I'm not even going to go there. So go ahead and pull up your worksheet. And I want to go through creating a routine for you. Now, if you don't have a morning routine, I want you to start there, because I think there is so much power in having a very intentional morning. And I really think that your morning can set the tone for the rest of your day. For me, my morning routine is pretty simple. I get up and meditate, and then I have my mindset practice. And I'm going to go over my mindset practice in just a second, because I think it's going to be really helpful. You're going to love it. But that's really the bulk of my morning routine at this point. My morning routine used to be 90 minutes, but I don't need that as much anymore, because my lifestyle is more of what I want it to be. So I don't feel like I need that haven so much. But it's still a good 30 minutes or so, depending on how much time I have. But 20 minutes is like absolute minimum, because I do at least 10-minute meditation and then a 10-minute mindset practice, like bare minimum. So that's what I do right now, but it doesn't have to be what you do. And I'm going to walk you through, some things that you can do. But if you just like aren't a journaler, then like, don't tell yourself that you're going to start journaling every morning. Like if you've never journaled in your life, like for me, like, yeah, life coaches and self-help gurus like, oh yeah, journaling, 5-minute journal, pull a journal. And for some people that's great, right? I'm not bashing it, but it just doesn't work for me. And so I just don't even go there. I just don't even try it. Right. But for me, I know meditation is something that I've been able to stick to, and it really works for me. And so that's kind of like what I do. So if I need to reflect on something, I just do that in my meditation. I don't necessarily have to do that journaling. So pick something that you want to do and that excites you, because at least in the morning, you're going to have to motivate yourself to get up, right? And that's probably going to be the biggest challenge for most of us. So it needs to be something that's exciting and at least somewhat fun, but definitely enjoyable. So let's go to the worksheet. And what I want you to do now is to kind of see where the gap is, right? So, and by the way, for the questions on the worksheet, it's mostly for morning routines. If you're working on an evening routine, if you're working on a pre-date ritual, if you're working on a pre-swipe ritual, then you're going to answer the question of, how do I show up on a date now? How do I want to show up, or how do I want to feel when I show up on a date? So if you're working on a morning routine, how do you wake up feeling now? How do you want to wake up feeling? If you're working on an evening routine, how do you feel when you go to bed now? How do you want to feel? So if you're going to bed now and you're feeling anxious and overwhelmed and like you have a to-do list going through your head, that's how you feel now. Maybe you want to feel relaxed and calmed and restful and ready for sleep. Maybe that's what you want to do. You can do the same thing for waking up, for before a date. Maybe right now when you go on a date or before a date, you feel very anxious, you don't feel confident, you're overthinking, overanalyzing. Maybe that's just everything that's going on for you right now, and you want to feel calm and relaxed and excited and unattached to the outcome. Maybe that's what you want to feel. So write those down. You can write it right on the worksheet. If you printed it out, you can write it in a journal, but do definitely write it out. Don't just think it in your head. I think there is power to writing it out. Also, if you want to share in the chat box, I would love to hear what's coming up for you so that I can support you. And also, I just think it's helpful for other people to see what's going on for others. And I'll check the chat in just a couple minutes. I'm going to take you through the next step first. So step number 2, if you're following along on the worksheet, or if you're not, I'm going to read it out loud. What would make your mornings feel decadent, or what would make your evenings feel relaxing? Or again, for whatever routine or ritual you're trying to create, what would make going on a date feel fun and relaxing? What would make swiping feel fun and relaxing, right? So again, this can go, so many different ways, right? Like there's a million things. I'm going to list some things that you can potentially do, but please don't feel like you have to do all of them. And please don't feel like you have to do what I do or what someone else in the chat box is saying that they do, because you have your own truth. And if you don't want to meditate, don't freaking meditate. You don't have to meditate in order to like be enlightened, right? Like you're not going to be more enlightened if you meditate. If you don't meditate, but you journal instead. So there's meditation, there's breath work, there's journaling, there's yoga, there's going on walks. There's just kind of sipping your tea or your coffee quietly without reading the news or watching TV, just kind of being with yourself and enjoying the hot beverage or eating breakfast without like scarfing it down while you're running out the door. Like those are all really great morning rituals. Evening rituals can be some yoga. It can be there's very specific breath work that you can do for the evening that helps relaxation. You can massage oil on your body. That definitely helps you sleep. It can be a hot bath. I don't know if that's something you can do every night, but if you're into it, like go for it. It can be lighting a candle and meditating then. It can be lighting what is it called? Oh, a diffuser and have like lavender in it, or it can be, I don't do it so much. Oh, gratitude journals. Also like writing out to-do lists, like, so it's not going through your head. Sometimes if I feel like, man, if I forget to do this tomorrow, I'm going to be screwed. And then what does it do? It makes me anxious. So I write it on paper so I don't forget. I send myself a text or I send myself an email so that the next morning I see it. Pre-date rituals or pre-swipe rituals is to envision the type of relationship and the type of guy that you're looking for. Now, I don't get too much into the guy. I talk about this a lot inside the Dating Mindset Bootcamp. I'm way more into how the relationship looks and feels. So envision that before you start swiping and before you go on a date, and envision how you want to feel when you're swiping and how you want the person on the other end of that phone connection to be feeling, and how you want your date to feel, or how you want it to look, or what you want the outcome to be. And the outcome doesn't necessarily have to be a second date. The outcome can simply be, that was just a good time. Like he was interesting. I felt like I had something to share. Like that could be, the outcome that you're striving for, because, well, if nothing else, there's a better chance for a connection to happen if that's what the outcome is. It can be lighting a candle before a date, or lighting a candle when you swipe, right? Like how would you swipe differently if you stop doing the mindless swiping at 10 o'clock at night when you should be going to bed or doing something more relaxing? And what if you just swiped for 20 minutes every evening and you lit a candle and you envisioned, your ideal relationship and your ideal partner, and you got really clear on your intentions, and then you set a timer, you swipe for 20, 15 or something minutes, lit a candle, and then when that timer was up, that was it. You move on with the rest of your life. Like, what would be different if you did that, right? Like, there's so many things that you can do. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. So if you have other ideas, please include them in the chat box. I saw some chats come in, so I'm going to open up the chat box and look and see what's here. Okay, let's see. Maggie says, how do you detach from the outcome you want it so bad? That's a really good question, Maggie. And I want to save that question to the end. Because I have a lot to say, and that might be even something, if you want, that I could unmute you and I could coach you on. So let me know, if you want to be coached, and I can just unmute you when we get to the Q&A part, but I'll definitely come back to that. Kate says, guilty of rushing my breakfast, drink coffee while reading news blogs. Yeah, well, it's not so much about feeling guilty, right? Like it's what you did. It's what you knew. It's what happened, like whatever, you have to be able to forgive yourself, because if you beat yourself up about it, it's going to be really hard to change your behavior, because it'd basically be me being like, oh my God, Kate, I can't believe you're drinking your coffee while you're reading the news and reading blogs. I mean, and you're rushing your breakfast. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, what if I was saying that, right? You'd be like, oh my God, that lady's a bitch. And you wouldn't listen to anything else that I said, probably, but you're basically doing that to yourself. So how would it be any different, right? Elizabeth says, very guilty of grabbing my phone before getting out of bed. Oh, I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Getting distracted and then rushing out the door. Melissa says, I work from 4 to 12:30 a.m. At 7, I take my son to school, then come back home to sleep. I won't get up till 12:30. Is there a way to create a ritual? Yeah, you can create a ritual for anything. Like, what if you created a ritual before, when you take your son to school at 7, you get home? What if you did like a 5-minute ritual before you go to sleep? Or what if you do a ritual when you get up around 12:30? Like that's great. I mean, you can ritualize anything. Anything can be ritual. Anything can be sacred if you just put intention behind it, right? Let me know if that helps, if that makes sense, Melissa. I think you just commented and I closed the box. Okay, cool. Yeah, never thought it can just be like 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Okay, so step 3 is, and I think, who was it? It was Melissa. Melissa says, how do you detach from the outcome you want it so bad? That's a really good question, Maggie. And I think, so step 3 is, and I think, who was it? Elizabeth, I think, was saying phones get in the way. So what gets in the way? I think it's a good idea to know what could potentially get in the way so that you have a plan around it. Big thing is phones. Phones get in the way. Phones are energy vampires. Scrolling through Instagram and then believing that everyone else has it figured out except for you. That's an energy vampire if I've ever seen one. Time vampire. Scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or swiping when you meant to be meditating. That's a time vampire. Money vampire. Believing that you need to buy all these crystals and expensive essential oils and candles and all this stuff to have a ritual. I mean, like, look, if you've got the cash and you want to, go for it. I'm not going to stop you. But you don't have to have those things, right? Like, you don't need any of that stuff to, all you really need is, I mean, you don't really need anything, but like any kind of technology, maybe just a timer on your phone to meditate, or a meditation app. Like, so what's getting in the way? So a big thing that I recently started doing that might be helpful for you is to sleep with your phone outside of the bedroom, because it's just such an energy and time vampire. It's a time suck, energy suck. Or if you need your phone for your alarm clock, keep it on do not disturb or on airplane mode. That would be most ideal. Just because so you won't get tempted to check your email or anything like that. I use my phone to do my morning routine because I use Headspace, and then I'm going to talk to you about my mindset practice. And I need my phone for my mindset practice. But for me, I've been keeping my phone outside the room so that I at least have to get up. And once I'm up, I'm fine not checking my phone. But what I used to do is just like, I could barely wake up, and then I would just like reach over for my phone and start scrolling, and that would quote unquote wake me up. But then really I would do it for 20 minutes. And then by the time I started to sit down for my morning routine, I would rush through it because I'm like, oh God, I'm running late. I need to get my day started already. So then I wasn't really fully behind it. I wasn't really fully present in my routine. So if that's what you need to do that. If you need to take the TV out of your room, you can do that. I mean, anything that you think is getting in the way, just remove it or have a plan to act around it, basically. So for me, another vampire is, or what's getting in the way is Stevie sometimes, my husband. He used to get up really, really early, and he would be out of the house long before 6 a.m. But now he doesn't get out of the house as early because he has a new job. And so sometimes he's here, which gets in the way. And so sometimes I might just flip some things, like maybe I'll get dressed and make breakfast and then do my morning routine, so that I can be distracted a little bit more when I'm getting dressed or making breakfast. Or I'll be like, I'm going into the bedroom, doing a meditation, don't come in. So like you can do the same thing with kids. Like if you have to get your kids out the door first thing in the morning, get them out the door the first thing in the morning, and then do your morning meditation or your morning routine, or get up before them. Right. And I'm not a mom, but I know a lot of moms that do that. So we all have obstacles, just to figure out how to get around it. Right. All right. And so I want you to create a goal for your next 30 days. So whatever your routine that you're going to try to set, don't say, oh, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Just say, I'm going to do this, for the next 30 days. This is what I want to do. So you could have a goal to do it every day for 30 days. You could have a goal to do it for the weekdays. You could have a goal to do it for just 2 days a week, like whatever seems sustainable and attainable to you. That's a little bit of a reach. That's what I want your goal to be. Also, other routines and rituals that I didn't mention is if you are like a workaholic like me and you have a hard time turning off work, you could have a routine to close out your work day, or you could have a routine to close out your work so that by the time you start your weekend on Friday, or by the time at 6 o'clock, like you were done, you were out of work mode, so those types of things are really helpful. And then the last thing is to create your visual goal board, because the hardest thing is people say, well, I meditate for a couple of weeks and then it goes. So I have a visual goal board, both personal and professional. I can show you my professional one because I can just turn the computer for a second. My personal one is on the wall. There's a corner here, so I can't really show you, but I'm going to turn the board or my computer just a little bit, and I think you should be able to see you can get the idea. Basically, it's a whiteboard here. So this is my business goal board. So it's a little bit different. Well, it's the same idea, but different goals, obviously. But as you can, I think you can see, there are circles there. These are smaller circles, and then smaller circles, and then I've got some other circles over there that I don't know if you can see. But basically, there's 4 groups of circles, and they're just for 4 different goal areas that I have that are around like how many podcasts I want to get out a month, how many newsletters I want to get out a month, how many clients, and those types of things. So I just draw these circles on the whiteboard, and then as I accomplish it, I just check it off, or I just write the date that I checked it off. And I have the same thing for my personal goals. So for me, a big personal goal right now, I just moved to Denver, is to build a new community of friends here. So I have goals around how many like event type things I go to, like meetups or networking events or social events, like things like that. So I have a goal that I go to 2 a week. And then I have a goal that I reach out to a new person once a week. Like, hey, I met you at this thing. It was really nice to meet you. Do you want to get coffee sometime? Like that. And then I have I have a goal to do that twice a week. And then I have a goal to have 1 friend date a week. And it's just about planting seeds because like the ultimate goal is to build a community. But how I do that is by just planting these seeds, or just going to these events. And so it just helps me stay consistent with it, because otherwise my tendency is to do it all like at the same time and then like get burnout and then not do it again for like a month and then complain I have no friends. Right. So this just keeps me consistent, but it helps me remember that I don't have to go to do all the things all the time. Like I can still be my hermit and be my introverted self and still watch Gilmore Girls and not feel guilty about it because I know that I had a friend date the night before or something like that. And it just builds over time. So that's how I stay consistent, and that's how I stay with my goals. So for example, if your goal is to start a morning routine, how many times do you want to do it a month? And then you want to create a goal board for every single month. And I've been doing this for over a year now, and it's amazing. It never fails, because there's something about seeing the goal board, I think, in not having it like on a file on your computer or somewhere on your phone or somewhere in your journal, but actually seeing it like somewhere where it's prominent, where you're going to see it every day. There's something that's very humbling, and you're like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. Am I actually doing these things that will bring these goals to fruition? So yeah, I'd love to hear just any questions or thoughts or comments about everything so far in the chat box. And I would love then, if there's nothing, or if there is some, I'm going to respond to it. But I will love to share my personal mindset practice with you that I think you can adopt to your life as well. And it's really been life-changing for me. So I'm excited to share it with you. Sorry, sometimes it's a little sticky getting into the chat box. Let's see. Kate says, I really like the goal board idea. I have a whiteboard on my wall, but I use it mainly for to-do lists, more stressful, not as energizing. Yeah, I have whiteboards all over the place. I got one here, I got one there, I've got one there. I do actually have one by the front door, and that's where I write to-do lists. I also write the recipes I plan to make for the week, because sometimes I'll see a bunch of recipes that I like, and then I'll write down the ingredients that I need, and then I'll go buy the ingredients, and I'm like, what were these recipes that I wanted to make again? So I write all of that on a whiteboard as well. So that, I'm like, okay, this is from this website, or this is from this cookbook and this page, so I can just easily refer to it. Stacey says, can you quickly show the goal board again? Yeah. Amanda says, thanks for the support. Yep, Amanda, you told me you had to leave, so no problem. We are recording, so you'll be able to watch the rest of this later. Yeah, so that's the goal board. I would take it off, except that there's double-sided tape, and I'm pretty sure when it comes off, so is the paint, so it's going to come off when we move out. But yeah, you can just see that. I do actually, so this is by quarter. I don't know if you can read that, but it actually says Q3 goals. My personal one is July, or it's not July anymore. I changed my goals, but I didn't change the month. So that should actually say August, not July. Anyways, so I do personal by the month and I do business by the quarter. That's a flow that works for me. Like, I don't necessarily think of my life in quarters. That's why I just do it by the month. Although you could certainly do it by the season, like summer, spring, winter, fall. That could work for you, especially if you're really into the seasons. That might be something that jives for you. And then Melissa says, I have 2 whiteboards, one at home for personal and one at home for work. Yeah, start running with this. And just put it somewhere where you see it every day. So by the front door, in your bedroom, if you have a home office. If you never are in your home office, then don't put the board there, because it is something that you definitely want to be able to see every day, because I think that's what makes it so powerful, is just seeing it every day. And also at the beginning of every month, when I'm erasing my goal board, which is pretty full at that time, and then I'm starting a new month and like everything's empty, it can be pretty vulnerable. It can be pretty humbling. I'm like, wow, but it always gets filled in. And I think it's just the power of seeing it there every day. Yeah, so much better than just your calendar. Because it's just things get lost in your calendar, and this is not necessarily your schedule, right? Like it's really your intentions, and really it represents the way that you want your life to be. Right. So I think it's much bigger than just your calendar. So yeah, I love that you guys love this. So I'm going to talk about my mindset practice for about 5 minutes. And then I'll take questions for 15 to 20 minutes. I'm happy to unmute anyone that wants to be coached. So you can let me know right now, or when I finish talking about the mindset practice. So like I said, my current morning routine is pretty much a 10-minute it's a 10 to 20-minute meditation, and then my mindset practice, which takes about 10 or 15 minutes depending on how much time I have. My meditation, I either use Headspace, which I highly recommend. It's an app that I love, and I just can't recommend it enough. If I don't feel like doing Headspace, then I'll do a recorded meditation from a yoga teacher that I like, or sometimes I'll just do my own meditation, but I often find that I need the guidance to stay focused. So yeah, that might be, so you kind of can explore if you do want to start meditation. If you do want to start meditation, never tried it before, I can't recommend Headspace enough. I know there's others. I've tried Buddhify before, but I really think Headspace is better. It's not cheap. I think it's like, I can't remember. I want to say it's like $80 or $90 a year for the subscription, but they have a free version where you get like the foundational pack, and you can learn at least how to meditate, and then you can go off and do your own meditation if you want to. Can't recommend it enough. They don't pay me to say that, although I think they should, because I talk about it a lot. And I tell all my clients to do it. Anyways. Okay. So my personal, my daily mindset practice, first of all, again, like I do this for both my business and I do it for my profession, or for my personal life. My personal life right now, excuse me, is very much around building a community here and finding new friends in Denver. So I'll go with that example, because I think that's probably most resonant with most of you all listening. But I think for a lot of you all, because you're here and you're in this community, I know a lot of your goal is to find love, to to get into a real relationship that feels meaningful and deep. So let's just go with that, actually, because that's, I think, what a lot of your goal is going to be, or your personal goals will be. So assuming that's your goal, that you want to find love and get into a relationship, what I would do if this was my goal and I was doing this mindset practice is I would write down every single thing that I needed to believe as true or feel to be true in order to reach my goal. So if you want to find love and find a real, meaningful, deep relationship, what do you need to believe is true? What do you need to feel? What is that? What all needs to be true there? Well, first of all, you need to feel that you're worthy. You need to feel that you're good enough. You need to feel that you're whole and you're complete and you're not broken. You need to feel that you don't have to fix yourself, right? Yeah, there's some unpeeling of layers to do, but no one's broken, right? But society and system has us believe that we're broken. I won't get into that. That's a strong opinion that I have. But you're not broken. That there are guys out there that want to be in a deep, meaningful relationship with you. There are good men out there. Not every guy is a cheater or a liar or emotionally unavailable. Like those are all beliefs you might need to believe. You might need to believe that love is possible. You might need to believe that love can feel easy, and it can feel fun. It can feel freeing. It doesn't have to feel so hard or restrictive. It doesn't have to feel so complicated, right? So these are all things that you might need to believe or feel in order to be true. So what I do is I use Google Keep on my phone, which is an app. It's basically a Post-it app. So, like how you can have Post-its all over your wall or something. It's basically the same idea, but it's for your phone. I'm sure there's other apps. I personally like Google Keep. I use iPhone. I'm assuming because it's called Google Keep that they have an Android version because it's Google. But you can download an app like that or something, or another kind of Post-it app. And, I have Post-its, all sorts of like ideas for podcasts or recipe ideas or grocery store lists. So like I have all sorts of Post-its, but one of my Post-its are beliefs I need to adopt as true in order to reach my goal. So the first time I did this, I literally just wrote down every single belief that came up for me that I needed to adopt as true or believe as true. And so the first time it's just literally like banging them out like I just did. And then because it's on my phone and I pretty much have my phone most places where I go, when I catch myself getting tripped up, like, oh, what if she doesn't like me? Or what if she thinks I'm weird? Or what if no one's cool at this event that I'm going to? What if I never make any friends? Then I'm like, okay, I need to reverse that belief. I need to shift it and create a new belief. And then I just add it to my list of things that I need to believe. So it's a one-time thing that I just kind of write down everything I need to believe, and then I add on to it as I catch myself going down a rabbit hole of self-doubt, negative thinking, all those kinds of things. All right. And then, and you can do the same too. And then I want you to define what your ultimate desire from your goal. All right. So your goal might be to find love or to find a relationship, but your ultimate desire might be to feel needed or to feel wanted, or it might be to have companionship, or it might be to share your life with someone, or to share experiences with, or it might be to find freedom. Those all things could be your ultimate desire. So for me, my big personal goal is to find friends and to find a community here. And my ultimate desire is community. Like that is such an important value in my life. So community is my ultimate desire, as well as connection. That's a huge ultimate desire of mine. So coming back to actually what I do. So you have to do all this prep work before, and you can change your goal. Like I usually change up my goals every season or so, because I feel like, okay, like I feel good here. I'm going to move on to something else. We'll see how long it takes me to build a community of friends here in Denver. But what I do is I open up, after I meditate, I open up my notes app. So the Google Keep app, and I read out all of my beliefs out loud. And I read them out loud, like enthusiastically, like with some oomph behind it. So I can, even if I don't believe them in that moment, at least it sounds like I believe them. I'm kind of faking it till I make it. And I think that's a lot of how you actually change your mindset. So I'm reading it out loud, like as if it were already true. And then I set the timer on my phone for 3 minutes. Sometimes I'll do up to 5, depending on how much time I have. And I'll just pump up the volume. I'll envision myself accomplishing my ultimate goal. So having a community of friends, maybe I'm having a potluck and everyone's here. So I'm just like really into that space, and I'm feeling it and I'm seeing it and I'm feeling all of these things that I need to feel in order to have this goal become true. And I'm connecting with my ultimate desire, which is community and connection. And just for 3 minutes, as much as possible, I am focusing on that, and I am pumping up the volume of those beliefs, of those feelings. And I'm just like seeing it right there going on in my mind. And so I focus on that as much as I can. Yes, my mind will drift. Sometimes I'll start thinking about something else, but I'm like, oops, my mind went off. I'll just bring it back so I don't like freak out or get mad at myself. And I do that for about 3 to 5 minutes. And the timer goes off. And then I set the timer for another 3 to 5 minutes. And this is where step 4 is. And it's not really step 4, but step 4 is I close my eyes and I get really quiet, as quiet as I can in my mind. And I just simply ask for divine guidance. And it can be like guidance from life, the universe, God, whatever it resonates with you. But it's just simply like, okay, this is what I want. and this is how I need to feel, and this is how I feel right now, and this is what I believe. Just show me the way. Just show me what to do. Give me a sign that I'm on the right path. Just let me, just guide me, be the leader. And what's so interesting is, sometimes I'm like, meh, I'm not really getting anything. Sometimes I just get this intuitive hit of oh man, I need to do this, or I need to stop doing this, or whatever it is. And the thing that surprises me every single time is a lot of times we think that we don't know how to do something, or that we're like, well, I don't know how to make friends. I don't know how to talk to people. I don't know how to talk to guys. I don't know how to be flirty. I don't know how to do all these things. But the truth is that 80% of the work of reaching your goal is mindset, and only 20% is tactical. Because every single time that I've received some sort of guidance or intuitive hit about what to do or what my next step is, or showing me the way, it's always been things that I know how to do, right? It's never for example, when I do this for my business, it's never create a tripwire and then this complicated funnel, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? I don't know what that kind of stuff is. I don't do that stuff in my business, right? I've never gotten that kind of intuitive hit. It could just be send this person an email, right? Or do this challenge. And actually, this is where this workshop idea came from. I was just sitting there, show me the way. What do I do? Show me the way. I'm ready to be guided. And they're just show your audience this. Show them what you do. And I was like, holy shit, that is such a good fucking idea. Sorry for the French. And that's what happened. That's really where this whole thing came from. And I knew how to do it because I know how to get up here and teach. I know how to get people to show up. And so again, it's just mindset, right? It's so much just mindset and being in the right space and already feeling how you need to feel and believing what you need to believe in order to attract that. So it's getting out of that when then, but it's more in that I already feel this, and I'm not sending out want in the world, because when you send out, I just want a boyfriend, I just want love, I just want more money, what do you get back? You just get a bunch of want, right? Because like attracts like. When you're getting back want, it's the lack of, it's the not having. But when you send out the ways that you want to feel and your beliefs, so what are you going to get back? You're going to get back those very things, right? Whew. Okay, so that was a little longer than 5 minutes. It takes me a while to explain my mindset practice, but I hope this was helpful and gave you some ideas. Now, I will say that you don't have to do this specific mindset practice to a T. This is what I do. It works for me, and it's super powerful. But for you, it can just be a simple, visioning of what you want to accomplish, seeing yourself in it. You don't maybe have to, if it doesn't resonate, you don't have to read out loud your beliefs. Or maybe you do the divine guidance in a different way. Inside the Dating Mindset Bootcamp, I teach EFT, which is the tapping, and that's really powerful for me. And I do that most mornings as well. And I won't get into that right now. But this is something that can be really powerful. And so that's another way to change your mindset, I believe. So there's lots of different things. This is what works for me. And I just hope that inspires you to kind of run with it and play with it and make it your own. So I would love now to take any questions. If anybody wants to be coached, I would love to support you. And also while you're here, so whether you're listening to this live, I'm just finding the link, whether you're listening to this live or you are listening to the recording, I would love to invite everyone who signed up for the refresh to sign up for a free coaching call with me. It's just 20 minutes, but it's you and me, and we can talk more about this stuff. I can help you create something that's really meaningful and special for you, or if it's just about other relationship, dating, life stuff, I'm happy to, coach you through something and give you my 2 cents in a free coaching call with me. So as soon as I get the, there we go. I got my chat box open. So the link is veronicagrant.com/free-coaching. So if you're in the chat box, you can just click on that. If you are listening on the phone, or if you are listening to this recording, I don't think you can see the chat box, but it's veronicagrant.com/free-coaching. And I would love to support you more in this. If you have a question and don't necessarily want to be coached, publicly on, in a group forum like this, to totally get it. I'm happy to spend 20 minutes on the phone with you, as, instead, or even, or both. It doesn't matter. It's totally fine. And And spots are pretty limited only because I just don't have, all the time in the world. So I think the spots open up tomorrow and they go until next Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't exactly remember. But what it does is once you go to that link, veronicagrant.com/free-coaching, it's actually taking you to a little bit, it's taking you to a questionnaire, right? So there's some questions for you to answer just so that when we get on the phone, because we only have 20 minutes, I just want to get right to it and not have to do like, well, what's going on for you, blah, blah, blah. But I already want to know some basic things that I can help you even more, because 20 minutes isn't a lot of time, but we can cover a lot of ground if I have some background info. So you fill out that form that is right on that link. And then when you click submit, it'll refresh. And when it refreshes, it takes you to my scheduler tool. And then you can just schedule yourself right into my calendar. And you can get on my calendar as early as tomorrow morning. And I would love to support you. I will say that though, if you don't fill out the questions on the questionnaire, like thoughtfully, then I reserve the right to cancel your session. I don't need like your whole life story. I don't need a book for each question, but I do want to see that there's some thought behind it. Because if you're not putting a lot of thought into your questions, then you're probably not going to get a lot out of coaching, because coaching, you really have to like be willing to be seen and to share and to open up. And so it's just going to be a waste of time for both of us. So again, like, thoughtful responses, again, doesn't have to be your life story, but I do need to see that, you didn't just fill in something just so that you can press submit, because they're all required questions. So, excuse me, I'm beginning to lose my voice, so we'll see how much longer this can last. So I got a couple questions. If you have any questions, put them in the chat box. There's a little bit of a lag, so I'm going to say that now. Because if there's no questions, then we're just going to go ahead and close out this session or this meeting. But I don't want to cut anyone off by, because of the lag. So go ahead and put your questions in. You can type them to me anonymously or privately, and then I can answer them anonymously if you would like. You can also sign up for, again, that free coaching call with me. So Melissa says, will there be a link for a recording? Yep. So the recording will go out tomorrow morning/afternoon, depending on when either myself or my assistant can get that out to everybody. And Stacy says, is there a single most change you made that was most helpful? Ooh, that is such a good question. And I've been on a lot of podcasts, but I've never been asked that question before. Man, you know what? I'm kind of in morning routine mode right now, just because that's what I'm teaching and that's what I'm talking about. And so I don't know if I would say that, because that's kind of like where my headspace is, but like, my morning routine really changed a lot for me, because it set the tone for my day. Before, like I said, I was just always like a stressed out nutcase, like just constantly stressed, so emotionally volatile, like all over the place. Like anything could make me feel like I was on top of the world, but then just as quickly I could get knocked down and just be at the very bottom again. And so like my life just felt like this all the freaking time. And it's just really hard to operate like that. It's really hard to be quote unquote normal, whatever normal is, right? It's hard to connect with people like that when you're just like almost nervous, like what's going to set me off, like what's going to happen or what's not going to happen or whatever. And so my morning routine really helped me to it did a couple things, but it helped me to set the tone for my day, which I think is just like something that happens with a calm, quiet morning. But it also taught me to be able to better manage my emotions, especially like with meditation, because I teach meditation a lot to my clients and to my boot campers. But meditation isn't about not thinking. Like for years, I thought meditation was about not thinking. Like, I can't not think. Like meditation isn't for me. Or we think that like when we're meditating and then we start thinking and we're like, oh, we're doing it wrong. But that's not what meditation is. Meditation is just simply noticing what thoughts arise or what emotions arise, and then just sitting with it and being okay and being completely neutral with it. And it's really hard and it takes a lot of practice, but like it was for me, the consistency of doing that eventually trained my brain to not freak out at every single thing. And so by the time I was dating, especially when I was in DC, and I was just like, and again, you'll hear my whole story when you listen to the How I Found Love series on my podcast. But by the time I got to DC and I was living there, I was feeling pretty good. And I, and I, Katie, I just saw your comment. So yeah, I always thought meditation wasn't for me because I don't want to sit around not thinking. Yeah, that's not what meditation is at all, but it's just a misunderstanding, I think. There's a really good video by a monk about the monkey brain and meditation. Stevie actually sent it to me, my husband. I'm not going to try to Google it right now because I don't want to waste your time, but if you Google like monkey mind, if someone else does it and shares it, but it's like monkey mind, monk meditation, I bet it will come up, but I can't be certain because I haven't Googled that before, but it might come up. But it's a really good explanation as to like what you're actually supposed to be doing in meditation. But anyways, it was the consistency that when of doing that and basically training my brain that like things, I can have these thoughts that are uncomfortable. I can have these emotions that are uncomfortable, that I don't have to lose it. And so what started happening is I started dating and I wasn't that interested in the guy, or he didn't text me back, or nothing ever came of the date that we went on, or anything like that. But it was just fine. Like it was just part of the process. And that's just part of what dating is. I mean, that's kind of like what I'm doing now with like friend dating, right? It's like, okay, like I went on a coffee date with someone last night and just, we're probably not going to hang out again. Like but it was like, fine, it doesn't mean anything about who I am or who she is. It's just simply like, there wasn't that click. There wasn't that connection. And it's the same thing with dating. And it took me a really long time to be okay with that, because before it would be, even if I wasn't interested in the guy, or even if I didn't even know how I felt about the guy, I had to have him like me, because if not, that was still me getting rejected. And like, that was something I couldn't stand. And that would have set me off emotionally, like a bazillion, like just off the deep end or whatever. But then it got to the point where I learned to be able to control my emotions. And really my morning routine is what helped me do that, through the breath work and the meditation. And yoga has been a big influence in my life. Of just being okay with being uncomfortable, and it doesn't have to dictate everything. Like if I'm going to be a control freak and I'm going to have to control everything, well, then you know what? I can control how I feel, right? Like how you feel about things and what you do, you have so much more control over it than you think. And I think a lot of people think it's the other way around. And it took me a long time to realize that, because there's patterns and behaviors that I learned from my family that just blow up at things when things weren't going the way they wanted them to go. I think it was a really long answer to your question, Stacey, but I think I went off on a tangent. But I hoped that helped. So does anyone have any other questions before we sign up? We're right at an hour, but I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes longer if anyone has any questions for me or thoughts or anything like that. Let's see. Katie's, right. Okay, I already read that. Elizabeth says, I feel like I'm open to dating a lot of guys. I'm not really having a type. But I do feel like there's certain things like sharing the same religion values that can be important. What are your thoughts on that? I don't want to limit myself, but I don't want to date just anyone. Okay, I have something I can say about this. I can certainly coach you on this if you want. So let me know if you want, I can unmute you. But I do have an opinion that I think will be helpful. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Jewish, and I wanted to, for a long time, marry, or eventually, this is before I was married Stevie, who was Jewish, by the way. I wanted to marry someone Jewish because I wanted a Jewish family and a Jewish upbringing for my kids. And it was a religious thing, but it's also very much like a values thing, right? And what's interesting is during my time dating, I dated both a lot of Jewish guys and I also dated a lot of non-Jewish guys. And what I discovered is that there was a few Jewish guys that I dated that come to mind, and they were Jewish, so they checked off the box in that sense, but they had no interest in Judaism and even culturally, like Jewish stuff. They just had zero interest. Whereas I dated some non-Jews, but they were really curious about Shabbat dinners. They were like, what is this all about? Like, you just get together every Friday night, eat a bunch of food and drink some wine. Like, that sounds awesome. Count me in. Right. And so they were very curious about learning more, and like, not that I would have like wanted them to convert or like expect them to convert, but like they had that curiosity, and it became something they actually enjoyed to do, because it brought a sense of like ritual, and like, it's a weekly thing. Like every Friday night, like I know that Stevie and I are either going to be hosting a Shabbat dinner or going to a Shabbat dinner. And so like it can be very grounding in that sense. And so some non-Jews that I dated really related, or really found some joy in that. And so I was like, well, what is this about? Like, do I need to marry someone Jewish or what? Because I dated a Jewish guy who wanted nothing to do with Judaism, and it was like pulling out teeth to get him to come to a Shabbat dinner with me. And he felt so out of place. And then I felt out of place and uncomfortable because I was trying to make him comfortable rather than just like enjoying the freaking dinner. Whereas like I dated some non-Jewish guys who freaking loved it, and then we just had a great time, which, brought me to this conclusion. And I don't think that you necessarily have to be on the same path, whatever your religion or your values or anything like that. I don't think you have to be on the same path, but I do think you have to be on parallel paths. So if your path is going this way and his path is going this way, then I think you're going to have a problem. But if you're here and he's here and you're both going that way, I think you're going to be fine. Of course, there could be other things that might not make the relationship work, like connection or chemistry or things like that. But I think, when we're talking about, religion and values and things like that, you don't have to have the same thing. I think a lot of women get frustrated because like their guy isn't interested in personal development or self-help or things like that. But I find that the self-help industry is very targeted towards women. And in a lot of ways it preys off of women, like feeling like they're not good enough. And men are raised differently in society, like I think on an unconscious level. So they're not necessarily going to be reading all the self-help books, listening to all the self-help podcasts, but they probably do other things that challenge them and that help them grow. And so again, like they may not be reading all these self-help books or podcasts that you're doing over here, but he might be challenging himself by signing up for an art class or starting a business or volunteering with, some at-risk youth or something like that. So does that help, Elizabeth? Let me know if that's kind of gives you some guidance. And even actually with Stevie, I talk a lot about this a lot inside the boot camp. But Stevie is Jewish, like I mentioned, but he's actually from an Orthodox family, a Jewish Orthodox family, and I am like from the total opposite. It's Reform. I don't know if you're interested or aware of like different sects of Judaism, but it's basically like the least religious. And like logistically, there's some things that we do differently, right? Especially when it comes to Shabbat and keeping kosher food, right? And so sometimes the things that we do look differently, right? Like I might use my phone on Shabbat, but he doesn't use his phone on Shabbat, right? But the important thing is that Judaism for us is so important because of the cultural elements, because of the community elements, and because of the emphasis around family and like having Shabbat dinners with your family every week. And we have those same values. And so we're headed on that same direction. Well, things get complicated maybe like when we have kids and like, with phones and things, like, yeah, sure. But like, we're not talking, but like, whatever, we'll figure that out when we get to it. But the point is that we have the same values. We're going the same way. And I think that's what matters. And that's what it's more important to look for than just what they say on paper or what like degree or job or whatever they have. And, when I work with clients or in the boot camp, the first thing that we do is just get really clear on like, well, first we just scrap the perfect man list because that stuff is bullshit. And it's based on like, stuff that doesn't even really matter. I actually just did a Facebook Live about this. You can go over my Facebook page and check it out. But it's really more important to like understand what your values are and what direction you're headed and what you want your relationship to feel like. That's way more important, and also gives you a lot more clarity than just these things on paper. Because how often have you said like, well, he seems great on paper, but I'm really interested. And so now I think something's wrong with me because I feel like I should like him, but I don't like him. And then it just creates like this like mental nutcase, like a monkey mind in your brain, right? Like it just makes you feel like a crazy person. So I hope that's helpful. I know I tend to go on tangents all the time, but that's okay because I'm very passionate about what I teach. I hope that comes across. So again, thank you so much to everyone who came here tonight. I don't think there's any more questions. If you have any very last minute questions, if I catch it before I end this meeting, I'm happy to answer them. I just put the coaching link down. I would love to connect with many of you personally. So head over to veronicagrant.com/free-coaching, or you can just click on that link if you're listening on your computer or have access to the screen. I will send this link also out when I send the replay, so you can grab that. But just spend 5 minutes or so answering that questionnaire. Again, it doesn't have to be a life story. It doesn't have to be everything, but just enough so where it's meaningful enough to where we can just get right to the meat of the matter of whatever your question is or your struggle is when we get onto our coaching call, because we don't have a lot of time, but if I do have some background information, we can really get pretty deep pretty quick and get a lot done. All right, so I don't think there's any more questions. So thank you all so much for coming to tonight. I had so much fun. I love connecting with you all in this way. I'm hoping to do a refresh about once a season or so. So we'll do this probably again in October or November, but before then, remember there is the my 6-part series of How I Found Love. The Date Yourself Challenge is coming up, and you can join the bootcamp or get on the bootcamp wait list, because this time around I am limiting the number of people that I take into the Dating Mindset Bootcamp, which is my signature group coaching program. So the wait list will hear about the bootcamp before everyone else, so you have a chance to grab those spots early, and you also get a little bit of a discount. So to get on the wait list there, you can go to, I'm writing this as I type, veronicagrant.com/wait list, and just sign up there. And I hope to see you guys personally each in a coaching session with me. All right, have a great evening, y'all, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Bye.